Get your mics on. We're going to call the meeting to order. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda. Any additions or corrections?
I don't think there's anything else. Move to approve the agenda.
We are deleting Tess because she is not ready yet.
Okay. With that correction then.
Yeah.
Motion?
Yes.
Second one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from last week?
Excuse me, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, public comment period. Again, there is a reminder not to use personal attacks with names during your public comment period.
Morning, Commissioners. Give the handouts.
Thank you.
These documents are in order. I'll be talking about them in the order that I know.
Oh. No. That door back there has to be open. State your name and township, and you do have 2 minutes.
Michael Fields, Winnebago Township. During last week's meeting, it sounded like a lot of faith was being placed on the adoption of strict frac sand mine regulations in case the board couldn't enact its preferred option, which is a total ban. But a regulation is meaningless unless it is enforced. Among the attachments are copies of 2 reclamation plans. One is the Gengler Quarry and seems to contain most of the information required by the zoning ordinance. The other, much briefer one was presented by Skyline Materials during the Board of Adjustment hearing, the one that granted Skyline its after-the-fact variance for shaving off half of my setback. You'll note that this plan contains almost none of the information required by the ordinance. The one detail it does provide stands out. Skyline said it will begin reclamation, quote, within 2 years of the conclusion of mining activities. On page 127 of the zoning ordinance, however, it quite clearly states, quote, reclamation shall be complete within 1 calendar year after operation ceases. During the Board of Adjustment hearing, Scanlon stated that he was satisfied with the Skyline plan. Also attached is a 2008 letter from Bob Scanlon to Gary Miners, basically telling Mr. Miners to go wild with the Schutz Quarry on his property. There's no hint that neighbors would have to be notified before mining could begin, no requirement for a CUP, reclamation plan, or a performance bond, nothing. 5 years later, I requested copies of this quarry's conditional use permit and reclamation plan. On the request for information attachment, you'll see Rick Frank's handwritten note saying there is no CUP or reclamation plan on file. Why not? The zoning ordinance requires environmental services to keep these documents on file. Taxpayers don't seem to be getting much bang for the buck from this office. Unless the board is planning to make some changes in environmental services, this peak at the tip of the iceberg should have shaken your faith in strict regulation of frac sand mining. Thank you for your time.
Brian Van Gorp, Yucatan Township. I'd like to talk a little bit about the land rights issue. A couple of you brought that up at the last meeting. And we all recognize that with any right comes a responsibility. For example, free speech comes with the responsibility not to yell fire in a crowded theater. The right to bear arms comes with the responsibility to use a weapon carefully and safely. Likewise, the land right to make income from property comes with the responsibility not to degrade the land for future uses and not to infringe upon neighbors' rights to enjoy their property. My right to wave my arm ends at your nose. The land rights argument works on both sides in the case of frac sand mining. Miners can claim the right to make money from their property as long as they do it safely and the land is properly reclaimed. The neighbors can claim the right to maintain property values, protect their water supply, to enjoy their property, to protect their health and safety. Land rights does not seem to give us a clear answer regarding whether industrial scale sand mining should be allowed or banned. Certainly, we also have a responsibility to think beyond our own situation and consider the common good and the preservation of the commons. There are values that extend beyond our lifespan and our property. Your job as public servants is to consider the bigger picture. What are the rights of the seventh generation? Thank you.
My name is Sue Van Gorp. I'm a Yucatan Township resident. I have grown very weary of the we all drove here in our cars argument. We will all continue to use our fossil fuel powered cars until there is an alternative. So why is there no alternative when we all know fossil fuel use is a main source of anthropogenic climate change? Today, fossil fuels have a lower monetary cost, but not a lower real cost than alternative renewable energy. That is a distortion of the market created by three factors. Fossil fuels are directly subsidized to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars per year. Tax breaks, public funded research, low cost or no cost leases of public land, use of publicly built infrastructure, and the making of public to clean up the messes. Fossil fuel corporations externalize most of their costs to we the people, who pays for climate change, pollution, and environmental destruction, not the fossil fuel corporations. Automobile companies and fossil fuel companies have consistently bought up and buried new technologies and transportation alternatives and then made sure that they never came to market. Everything from more fuel-efficient cars to mass transit have been kept off the market. Until we starve these companies that control what we have access to, we will never have these alternatives. If a corporation could own and control the sun and wind like they own and make money from fossil fuels, we would already have made that transition. Frac sand is one step in this destructive cycle. Thank you.
Donna Buckby, Yucatan Township. Well, the weather's turning good, and I went out door knocking last night for the first time. I had told you that I was going to be out all winter, but this was a crazy winter. But I was in your area, and I drove around thinking, well, where am I going to start? And I chose a neighborhood that had big rigs and earth moving equipment in the yards and stuff, and I'm just going to see, how people here feel. And well, 4 or 5 houses, no one answered. I was talking to some guys on the street, and they were working over in Wisconsin in the frac sand industry, and 7 of them said we like frac sand mining and we don't want to ban. But I persevered and kept going until probably about 8 o'clock, 10 after 8 last night. It's a beautiful evening. And 20 people signed a ban. They don't want this at all, and they said, please come back, because when my spouse comes home, he or she will want to sign this, I know. And when this neighbor comes back from a trip, they will want to sign it. So it's like, give me that, I want to sign it. And give me the material, and I will talk to my friends and coworkers. So just want you to know, and I'm going to keep, no matter what happens here today or tomorrow or next week, I'm going to keep going door knocking forever if I need to. So I want you to be assured that the vast majority of citizens in this county want a ban. So thank you.
name is Steve Hartwick. I've been a resident of Muddy Creek Township for 38 years. I don't know how many of you people go to Valley Fair or Canterbury Downs or the Renaissance Fair, but as you're driving along Highway 13 there's a bunch of car dealerships, used cars lots and dealerships. They decided that there were enough of those, and they implemented a ban on any further car dealerships along that route. Now this is, they're making a ban on something that's already existing businesses in that area. To use an analogy, there's a lot of bars in Houston County. Let's say the bars are the gravel pits and the sand pits. You can ban strip tease in bars. That's because this is an activity that it goes beyond what is going on in a regular bar. This can be prohibited. You're the client's, Squires is your attorney. You should be able to have him pursue a ban. If he does not have that inclination, he probably knows someone to make a referral to. There's a 200-page EQB document out. And for a lawyer, this has got to be like being a kid in a candy store to deal with this. So what is his inclination going to be? He's going to want to start delving into this and tweaking this and that. But in addition to this being a smorgasbord for him, it's also a smorgasbord for the corporate attorneys to deal with. And, as much as you want to try to prohibit through regulation what they can do and effectively have a ban through regulation of this and that and what the other, I don't think that's going to be feasible. Someone else mentioned enforcement here. When you start doing that, you're going to have all kinds of enforcement costs. And if you look over at what happens with Wisconsin, they have all kinds of regulations over there. And those regulations are not being followed. And the mining interests, I think, consider this a cost of doing business.
Thank you, but you're...
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is David Williams. I live in Fillmore County. In a few moments, you're going to be consulting with your Land Use Council, Jay Squires. I urge you to ask him the following question, the question you've been wrestling with over whether or not you have the authority to actually enact a ban. I would urge you to ask him the following simple question. Does the Houston County Board of Commissioners have the land use control legal authority to permanently prohibit the mining and processing of silica sand within a county, provided that the Board of Commissioners develops and approves adequate and thorough findings of fact to justify the prohibition? Just that simple question.
Last one, Kelly.
Okay, Kelly Stanage, Houston Township. I understand that you're going to be speaking to Jay Squires today. Based on a couple of comments made during other meetings, you have two things to discuss with him. One is the possible permitting of the Erickson mine, and the second is whether basically the question that Mr. Williams just asked, whether it's within the authority of the county to prohibit frac sand mining. And I just want to read something to you that is about the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. In 1976, the Minnesota Supreme Court held that there is a limited exception based on the attorney-client privilege for meetings to discuss strategy for threatened or pending litigation. The attorney-client privilege exception does not apply to a mere request for general legal advice, nor does it apply when a governing body seeks to discuss with its attorney the strengths and weaknesses of a proposed legislative enactment like an ordinance that may lead to future lawsuits because that can be viewed as general legal advice. Furthermore, discussion of proposed legislation is just the sort of discussion that should be public. So I would very much like to encourage you to hold that portion of your discussion, at least that portion of your discussion, with your land use attorney, Jay Squires, in open session. This was written by the Minnesota House Research Group, and it has been proven through case law. So I very much encourage you to hold that part of your discussion in open meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board.
Brian?
Morning, Commissioners. I'm on the agenda today to talk about the ongoing issue with the purchase of the track compact loader that was approved by the board for the John Deere 333E, I believe 3 weeks ago now. It's been an ongoing discussion. There's been a couple emails that have been out by a local implement, and then also last week at the board meeting, Justin brought forward. Today I brought with me two of my maintenance staff. Tom wasn't able to make it today, but these two guys that are with me, they went out and they looked at the various equipment that we have for options out there. They test drove some equipment and stuff. So the models that were brought forth last week by Justin, these guys looked at in the field, and they saw what they have to offer. So I wanted them to be along here to answer any questions that the board has as far as why the John Deere was selected over the Case or the Bobcat. Went back and looked at the specs and spoke with both of these two along with Tom Mulling. And I guess when you look at the prices, what it comes down to, I guess we talked about the Case previously. So with the Bobcat that was brought up last week, there are a few differences between that and the John Deere. The John Deere has 5 rollers on each side versus the 4 for the Bobcat, so that's a little bit extra stability. They kind of have their tracks set up on the John Deere more like a regular dozer versus a smaller compact Bobcat or smaller skid loader. The biggest issue when you look at the two is the Bobcat has way less breakout force or breakout capacity. So the John Deere has 13,875 pounds of breakout force, where the Bobcat has 7,025. So that's a huge number difference. Besides for
mean breakout force?
Yeah, like if you're pulling something out of the ground that's stuck in the ground, a rock or something that's heavy, to get it lifted. So that's a huge issue.
Is that on the edge of the forks? Do you have forks on it?
This would be
boom breakout where the boom's going to break.
Oh,
So
yeah.
stress that you can put on the boom before fracture.
Okay.
So this is the item where that number is really high. So we actually called up John Deere, not from the Caledonia office, but a different office. Wanted them to verify that that number is correct, that it really has almost twice as much breakout force as some of these other ones. And they did confirm that the numbers are that high. And they've actually had issues with tines and forks bending because of the strength that it has for the breakouts. So it is that high. And I've talked to someone else that had an issue with Bobcat with frozen manure and stuff, trying to get it peeled out in the winter. And that's what that was lacking on their end. So I guess there are differences between the machines. And then I went back and I looked at the cost, what the cost differences are. The John Deere, if you take their machine that we spec'd out and you take out the warranty and you go to the foot-only controls, or one-hit controls, you're going to have the $66,288.80. The Bobcat for the same controls with the strobe light ends up being $61,957.48, so a total difference of $4,331.42. So, you know, when the numbers keep getting brought up, you know, that could have saved the county 10 to 20,000, you know, the numbers are really down there in the $5,000 range. For that, that $4,300 difference, you know, when you're out there on a job site, when you have a crew of 4 or 5 guys there, if you have a machine that cannot do the job and you need to go out there and get something else, you have guys that are standing around waiting for the proper equipment to show up. For every hour, you know, that's costing a couple $100. So you want to make sure you have the right equipment on the job site at all times. And then, you know, you don't want to purchase equipment that's not going to fit your needs. And that's where we figure that John Deere is going to fit your needs better. And then one of the other things, you know, talking to our guys is the safety aspects. Joe here, when he sat on, he said that the John Deere has much better visibility when you're backing up and maneuvering around inside the John Deere. Which, when you have a bunch of guys out there, you want to make sure that it's safe. We don't want to back over someone. You know, it's one thing if you're out there by yourself or, you know, one other person to keep an eye on, but when you have 3, 4, 5 other guys out there, lots of stuff going on, you want to make sure that everything's safe. So, I guess I'm going to recommend that the board sticks with the previous purchase and we proceed and move on. If the board has any questions, you can ask for me or either David Bauer or Joe Allen.
Sure. I got a question. Maintenance guys, what are the big 3 things that we need this machine to do? To lift, right, and run hydraulics, and to get from point A to point B, correct?
We need
that's
it to
what
be
they're-
safe for our field application is what we need it for. When we're lifting our concrete structures, we need it for lifting them correctly, not being so tippy, which our other machine has, for carrying the capacity we need. And to be safe in that trench, and then not tear up our base. If we have to go run a crane to set something, it's much more money efficient for us to have a better machine in that trench than me go run a crane to pick that piece of concrete up.
Yep, understandable.
Yep.
So when we're comparing the 3 things that this machine is designed to do, which is to lift things, to move around from point A to point B, and to run hydraulic attachments, those are the big 3 concerns, right?
Safety, visibility, of course. Yeah.
Sure, yep. But we do know that, and I doubt you guys are wanting to go public and call Bobcat unsafe.
No, absolutely not, absolutely not.
And we know that they do hold the market share, so obviously a lot of machines are sold, a lot of people think they're good. But when it comes down to it, lift capacity, we know that the Bobcats may be a little bigger or the same. We know that the case is very similar. We know hydraulics-wise, they're going to run about the same PSI and run the same attachments. There's not an issue with that. So I know you guys, and it doesn't matter, you guys are partial to whatever you want to do, but the bottom line for me as a commissioner is looking at this from a numbers aspect. We have 3 machines that are capable of doing the same thing that are all safe machines. They're all good machines. They're all proven machines. But if we can save some money by going with one machine versus another, which are all in the same category and class, we're talking a Ford, Chevy, Dodge debate. Some might be a little better in this category. Some of this, they're all great machines. I guess my thing from a commissioner aspect is we need to look at cost savings for the county. Now, when you're talking about adding all of these accessories and, well, the number goes from 10 to only 4, again, from a numbers aspect, and especially when we're still talking about possibly building a large maintenance facility, we have other equipment to buy. The big thing is, do we need to have all the bells and whistles? Now, I know some of the things have come up with having, you know, the joystick controls and being able to have both the hand and foot controls and all this and that. You know, I'm questioning, do we need to be very elaborate? We can get joystick controls, you learn how to use it and you run it. A lot of the accessories are, in my terms, a lot of the accessories are fluff. Like, do we need them in order to function the job
Well,
at
you
hand?
brought up the perfect thing. You
Sure.
brought up money issue,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
You're looking for the dollars.
Sure.
Without going too far, it's pretty short-sighted, because what happens is, if you're gonna short us on the $4,300 now, what's gonna happen down the road is, we're gonna have to start hiring a crane at $250 an hour to set these pipes.
And
Or I can
why
do-
would that be?
Because the machine that, if we go with the Bobcat, it's
Yep.
not gonna handle the pipe that we need to handle.
It can't in what regards?
As far as your breakout force not only is your digging capability, but it's also gonna allow you to carry that pipe,
Mhm.
okay? Which we need to be able to take a pipe out, carry it over here, set it down,
Mhm.
create our trench,
Mhm.
put our new base in, go back over and pick that up and carry it over here.
Sure.
If we can't do that, we're gonna end up renting a crane to sit here, carry it, swing it out, set it over there, and bring it back in.
And how much does that pipe weigh?
Depends. We don't know. One pipe could be 3/4 full of dirt. Okay?
Right. Right.
So we have to go with the best option that we can have here.
But we know that lift capacities on both of these machines for the John Deere's at 3,300 pounds. Technically, it's rated to lift 3,300 pounds. If that boom does break at more than 3,300 pounds, they're not going to avoid any warranty because you exceeded what the maximum operating lift capacity was. So we do know that boom breakout, and as an engineer standpoint, boom breakout is set to fail with a factor of rating of at least 3 to 3.5 past what it should actually operate. So you'd be well exceeding that lift capacity before you're going to reach boom breakout, correct?
And that's fine. It's not, it's clearly, you can analyze this all you want on paper.
Sure.
Okay? It's the field aspect of it that's a whole nother side of it. So, and as far as you talking about the fluff and the bells and whistles, a safety strobe and those things, and the controls in there are just as much a safety option than just being fluff.
Well, let me ask you this.
Because if I take you, who has no experience in that machine, I really don't want to be around you in that situation. But if you're great at hand controls, you need to be able to operate, with precision like feel. So it's not something you can just train a guy and say, go ahead and try that.
Actually, I'll disagree with you, and the reason I'm going to disagree with you, because I just got a skid loader that we had hand and foot controls, and we went to joysticks. In about 6 hours, you can have it pretty well licked where you're going to be able to do it. So we know that machines, any new machine you get is going to require some getting used to. You get a brand new road grader, controls are in different areas. It takes some getting used to remember where everything is and all the buttons. So that's going to be kind of a tough one. When
But cost-wise,
Sure.
you're gonna, so you could probably eliminate down to a couple $1,000s.
Sure.
Okay, with your bells and whistles, as you call it.
Yep.
So a couple $1,000s in the field doesn't go very far.
Sure.
So why not set it up right away so you're you're looking at the bottom line right now.
Yep.
Okay, today.
Yep, bottom line, we
So-
got a
It
quote for
seems like
$59,000.
it's only $4,000 difference. I think it's budgeted, it came in under budget, and I think they've done their research. And I think we have
voted
to,
on this already.
Okay, so
it's already been
You were the
voted
only
on.
one who voted against it, so you're taking up all the time of our employees
Exactly.
and everyone
Yeah.
else's time.
you guys are right, and I am taking up time because we did get a quote from Bobcat, we did get a quote from Case.
No,
Two
you got a
capable,
quote.
let me finish, please. Two capable machines, that one was for $59,000 and one was for like $63,000. Now, the question is, two capable machines, we could save a significant amount of money. Furthermore, Bobcat runs a program that we were just quoted on, or I was quoted on, and I know Stephen and Dana had also heard this, that they will trade in a machine every year for only a few $1,000s and get a brand new machine. City of Spring Grove's doing it, Hoke is doing it, La Crosse is doing it, there's a lot of cities doing it, Mabel's doing it. So you could have a brand new machine every year on trade-in for only a few $1,000s. And yet their machine is still a lot less.
Yeah, I'm sure you
With
would
all
too.
our equipment.
With
Yeah.
all of it.
It was being
So,
done.
That was being done in the past.
Mhm.
And you have a gentleman, I assume from SEMA here, correct? Is that?
Yeah, I'm just here on my own.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe you'd be able to answer that question if we would be able to trade in like that?
Yeah, we can do that too.
Okay, so for a
You
few
still have
$1,000.
to purchase the first one and have
Correct.
to be, then,
Sure.
normally how we do that as a dealer is we spec it out the way we want it back on return.
Sure. Okay, that's good, that's
I
good.
believe we need to move on. with
Sure.
our-
But I'll just make it clear that we did get a quote for 59,000, one for 62. So in essence, yes, we could save some money by going with a different machine. That is obviously very arbitration with which one's better. So that's the point I'm trying to make, and we can move on.
Were the Bobcat and the Case, were they spec'd, comparatively with the John Deere?
Well, and you're talking,
Or do you
you know.
have just the?
Sure. And so here's, actually, I think, did I do one this last week?
I think
Yeah,
we
I
have-
guess I did.
Okay.
I think we have an appointment at 9:30 that we need to move on. I think
Actually,
this
yeah,
has
we do.
already been approved, and I
You
believe
can
they've
actually
done their
have this one,
research.
too.
No, I got that.
Oh, do you got this one? Yep, so you can see what's spec'd out. So,
It's done, we've
Hope we
already
can-
approved.
I hope we continue to get bids from everybody.
Exactly, and I think they
That's
have
the way
to
we
do
should
the
operate.
spec sheet differences.
yep.
I think we need to move on.
And just being cognizant that we do have to look at the dollar, and not always buying top notch.
We do a lot of studying before we purchase them.
That's good, I'm glad you
I
did.
mean, we, 6, 8 months ahead, we go test drive them if we can, or drive them somewhere on the job site, so we get the best for what we need in the field. That's what we're looking at.
Yep, I'm glad you do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
At this time, I believe, Rick, are you going to bring Jay Squire's conference call forward?
I can dial it in.
Here, take mine.
Get down 9, get out of here?
Nine.
Maybe not.
Not much happened.
Holidays, yeah.
Did you have it at home?
No.
No, we didn't.
Let's see, there you go. You got nothing, you're not hooked up.
Push that in, yeah, maybe it's came loose. Tried it yesterday, it was fine.
1-800-ANDY.
There, nice.
There it goes.
Okay, 1-800, or whatever.
Yes, this is Rick Frank. Is Jay in?
I can see if he's available, just a moment.
What's that? Yeah.
Hi, Rick.
Morning, Jay. We got the whole county board here. There's attendance in the room, so I know we have several issues we need to go through, so I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Sure. Good morning. As I understand, there are a couple issues that the board wishes to talk about today. One involves specifically the Erickson property and the status of that property with respect to the history of events and Mr. Erickson's pending request to recommence mining. The second issue, I understand, involves the county's consideration and discussion of potential future ordinances in the area of silica sand mining. I think the issues are separate, and with respect to the former, there have been a number of threats of litigation, and of course there's a history of past litigation. I would like to be able to talk to the county board candidly about the strengths and weaknesses of the various positions that the county may have in response to Mr. Harrison's pending request. And in light of the threats of litigation, and in light of that, that would be a proper topic of a closed meeting. In discussing the second topic, in discussing future ordinances, that would not, in my judgment, be a proper topic of a closed meeting. So what I recommend to the board, and you can choose the order, but I would suggest perhaps discuss the Harrison issue first. You could convene a closed session on the basis of the attorney-client privilege exception in the open meeting law for the reasons I've discussed. There would be no discussion of ordinance options of a more general nature, which would be in the closed session. We would then reopen, and then, if the board wishes, that second topic would, in my opinion, under Minnesota law, need to be discussed in the open session.
What's the feeling in the board?
There's a motion to close the meeting to discuss threat and litigation and the strengths and weaknesses of the county's position involving the Harrison property. Second, a vote, and then go into closed session that doesn't need to be taken under state law. And then we should discuss closing options.
All right, okay. Move to a closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The motion was on the basis that I discussed.
I move to reconvene in open session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, after a conference with Attorney Jay Squires, I move to direct the staff to work with Mr. Erickson in processing his renewal request and extend any applicable 60-day rule period an additional 60 days. The board concludes that processing of this renewal request is not prohibited by the express language of the moratorium, thereby any pending EAW or EIS process. The board directs staff to provide notice of the board's determination to the affected property owners and the EQB.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that concludes our last session here, and now we can move on to the discussion on open meeting.
Mr. Squires is appearing, I guess.
Mr. Squires is still on
With
the
us,
speaker
right.
with us. And this is the discussion on frac sand issues.
Yeah, we had we had Mr. Squires look at some information for us as far as whether a ban would be possible. We did get a document back from him, and I would make a motion that we waive the attorney-client privilege on that particular document and make it public.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now I think we need to discuss whether we want to reconvene our ordinance study. Discussion?
Yeah, I guess my thoughts have been how they've always been, that that needs to continue. Obviously, you know, I made a motion, still stick to it to have a parallel ban committee just to look at that option so that the board can have two options to be presented with. But I think the original ordinance writing committee needs to continue, and I would like to see that continue and press forward strongly.
Jay, do you have an opinion on having the two separate committees, one studying a ban ordinance and one studying a frac sand regulating ordinance?
I think it's more of a practical issue for the board in terms of, you know, how that would look, who would be on the committees, would it be the same people, what they would study, but I think from a practical standpoint, it's always in the county's interest to evaluate all options that might exist in a given case.
Questions?
I guess I have none. It just seems a little, we need to, one or the other.
Well, I would say, like what Mr. Squire said, is exploring all options.
Right.
And to be honest, I would like to see Steve and Dana maybe head that up and work with Jay and just see if we can get some reasonings and get something in place. At least we have two options that we can say we've looked at both options in all sides of the issue when it comes to a public hearing.
Mm-hmm. I can do that. I can go along with that, yeah.
Rather than having a whole committee, just
Yeah.
have two of them
Yep.
work with Jay?
Yep, and just bring together some reasons, some justifications, some legalese, and come up with our reasons and justifications why we should have a ban, and let's bring that as a equal option to the table. Get the ordinances, have a public hearing, and hear from the public on both options, and then make a final determination.
So you're saying that the public hearing, when we're doing this ordinance, when we have a study group doing the new ordinance on it, are you saying that both options are going to come to the public hearing, or do we have a public hearing on the proposed ordinance?
I would have on both options, since both of them are proposed ordinances that will be set in place.
Well, like Jay had said before, that there would be a lot of time that would go into if you wanted to ban it. I guess I see more of it as you go forward with the ordinance to regulate it, and they can be looking at the ban, but I think that our first priority needs to be, the ordinance we've been working on needs to go forward. And then we can always continue on with the other one, but we need to make a decision as to go forward to regulate it first. Put our energy into one and not two things at the same time.
I would agree with you, Judy, and I think the entire board had talked about that a couple of meetings ago, that one of our main options was looking at a ban. So, in how that all got written up at the first time that ordinance writing committee was presented, it was that our option was to ban it, our second option was to look at the ordinances as a backup. Since then, it has changed. So my issue would be, why would we not look at both and have both options to be brought to the table, to have discussion in the public, look at both sides equally, and make a final decision? I wouldn't want to just put all my eggs in the regulation basket and then just dismiss the ban side of it.
But I'm not saying dismiss the ban side. I'm saying, let's get this regulated and get it done regularly. Because these two and Jay can't make up the ordinance. It has to still go through the planning commission before it comes to us, correct?
Right, but we do need somebody legally like Jay, and we need two people or three or however many it be to just keep that ball rolling to make sure that we're looking at all
Right, but I
options.
just don't want to see regulated held up by the ban part.
I don't think it would be. That's why we would have, the regulations would continue on right now with the current group, and on the side, separate.
So if the ordinance is ready to go, the study group comes back, they have their ordinance ready to go to regulate it, we can move forward with that even if the banning one isn't ready?
Sure.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Sure, we got to put, we got to put, right, so.
To Judy's comments as well, and I think that she raises some good points. My letter, the board's open public, my letter will be available for public consumption, but as I indicated in my letter, the courts, when they consider bans of any particular use, have looked more closely at and scrutinized the determination by the municipality that reasonable rules and regulations could not address the concerns that exist with that given use. So I think what Judy's saying makes sense in light of that, and by that I mean it would make sense. You can certainly have the concept of the ban continue to be processed concurrently with this effort to adopt rules and regulations. But I think necessarily the case law would suggest that what you should do first is go through the process of evaluating the regulations that might be imposed on this type of use. And ultimately, if you conclude after that first study process that you just can't adopt regulations that satisfy and address all the concerns, then you would have created a record that allows you to re-engage in the discussion of a ban. But that would be the appropriate time to really get into more of the meat and potatoes of that particular issue. So I think in that sense, while they can be held on the table and on the shelf concurrently, I think it makes sense, as Dewey suggests, to go through this evaluative process, keep the notion of an outright ban as a possibility, but then discuss that in more detail at the end of the process of identifying potential regulations, and then revisit and decide, now we have, are we satisfied, do we think these regulations can work and address our concerns? And if we don't, then let's talk about the concept of a prohibition.
Okay, so Jay, now, what's that?
Jay, could you please pick up your handset, because your speakerphone is interfering with our mic system here?
I'm not on handset, I wasn't on speakerphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're getting static.
We're getting static, but we'll just figure
Point
it
of
out.
order. If we can't hear him and understand him, this isn't an open meeting. I can't
We
understand
can't
what he's
understand
saying.
half of it either.
No.
This is not an open meeting.
Hey, Jay, real quick with what you were just saying, if we allow if we get the ordinance writing committee to continue on with their work, and it takes them a while, and come February they find out, you know what, it's not possible. Now it doesn't leave us a lot of time to look at banning language, so why would we not parallel it, since we don't have enough information to determine one from the other? Would it not be a wise management decision to have parallel in case that doesn't happen? We're ready to go and hit the ground running versus letting one expire and then running out of time, and then now you got to rush to get the other one. Why, you know? And I understand where you're coming from when you talk about, you know, from the court side of things, that if all of a sudden, you know, you have a ban but you have regulations that prove that it could be regulated and that a ban isn't necessary. But my question is, we don't have enough data yet to determine one or the other. That's why we have this committee put together. If their findings are, you can't, we ran out of time, would you not want to have something that, if it is found in the negative, we have something to hit the ground running?
Yeah. My point is, am I still breaking up?
Yes.
It must be on your end.
Volume down on it, put the microphone closer.
Okay.
Am I understandable enough to offer input?
You're all right. Try it and see.
Go ahead.
My point is, Justin, that the ban doesn't really need to be studied because that's not a complex ordinance. It's simply, you know, a ban would be a ban. You have in your ordinance language that simply says you can't do that. So the evaluation of the propriety of a ban, my point is, necessarily involves the parallel analysis of whether regulations can be adopted to address the concerns adequately. So I don't think you have a lot of effort going into studying a ban because it's pretty evident what it is in the language of the ordinance is easy to grasp.
Right, and it wouldn't necessarily be studying, but I think you had mentioned that if you have a ban, you have to have reasons and justifications, so we'd have to allow enough time to write that and have legalese term for that, correct?
Yeah, there's that period where from the time you would have gone through the regulatory analysis and decided or we're not satisfied, yeah, you do have to have a reasonable period to kind of put that record together. But you wouldn't have done the work. It's just a question of needing to assemble it.
Sure.
So, yeah, we're brought into the process, and that makes sense. But that, you know, that's probably a much shorter effort. That's a couple, 3-week month process.
We should have a deadline for the regulation committee to be done with the ordinances. It's like 1st of October. That'll give us time.
Yes.
We should have a deadline when we should be done.
Yep.
That's the way to deal with it.
Yeah, we could have a deadline, Kevin.
What would be a reasonable deadline?
I would say by October 1st.
It allows you November, December, January, February in case something happens.
Yeah.
So we could direct our regulating ordinance committee to have a completed document to us by October 1st? Jay?
No, you can do whatever you wish. yeah.
About December 1st.
Would,
I think that's the way we should do, go by October 1st, have the regulating document ready to go so that we could study the ban option.
does that sound reasonable to staff?
Sounds good to me.
Is that doable, Rick? Bob? Or a draft?
We could probably come up with some, yeah. Like I said, I mean, we have started, there's several things that came up, you know. If we're going to regulations, you know, there's some good suggestions already of mapping and different things, see what these type of scenarios play out to be. It's gonna take a little bit, but I think if we need to probably meet more often as a study committee.
Or extend if we need, if necessary, I guess.
And we can work, we can go back to the drawing board with them and then work from there. Work from there. And then we can keep the board updated as we proceed, you know, meeting to meeting and.
Why don't we see if we can get a draft by October 1st along that line and maybe have a finished document by December 1st? Something in that order, is that?
Or before.
Or before, yeah, right, exactly.
So we just need a consensus that that's what we're doing?
Works for me.
Yep.
Okay, so everybody's in agreement with the consensus?
Yes.
Jay, have you seen the list of people that are on that committee?
I have not.
Oh, okay. I just make sure that everything looks all right. We don't have any conflicts that you see present, or if anybody you think should be on there that isn't, or anything like that.
Probably not really, does he really know?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right, is there anything, no, sorry.
You're taking over.
Any
Is there any further discussion?
It's your job.
Any further discussion at this point? We agree that we're going to direct
Keep going.
keep going on it and have the draft by October 1st.
And Rick, still work Mondays at 9? I haven't heard that it doesn't work for anybody.
I will, do you want to maybe meet, I'll have to see what the rest of the commissioner or the people on the staff there think about next, I'll maybe try even next Monday if that works for you.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll start already, and we can pick up where we left off.
Right.
We finished with Jay.
I think we're finished with you, Jay. If you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. And thank you.
Point of information, could someone translate what y'all just voted on about the ban?
We didn't vote at all. All we did is a consensus that we're going to continue to work on the ordinance study group, and we can base a ban on findings from that.
Okay. What's the time frame for looking at
October
the ban?
1st is what
The
we're...
ban will be coinciding with the ordinance writing?
The ban will be based on...
They'll run in parallel. The study will be study or creation of a ordinance will run parallel with study of doing a ban.
Thank you.
Did somebody explain what happened with the Erickson permit?
Yeah, we did a motion, I believe.
No, we didn't understand it.
Unfinished business?
Is that work for you Monday night?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Steve, you seem to have read when you came back into open session. Is that, can I have a copy of that? Because it was hard to get down.
We'd like to see that.
And recite it, or, yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like it was an official statement, so.
It was.
I don't know if that's something, do you want to email it?
Sharp can get it to you.
Okay, great. And then the document Justin spoke of that.
We'll get that to you soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
via email or?
Yeah.
I don't have it. Can you get it to me?
I've got it, I can get it to you.
Okay.
Me too.
Yep.
Thank you.
Me too.
I don't think you've got it either.
I don't have it, but I should get it and get it on file.
Sure.
And there was one word change on that.
On this,
You got it?
yep, I got it.
Okay.
Hey, real quick, will we have an opportunity to talk about Fraxan? The Strictly is in the back of the room, and we're talking about possibly seeing if she would be willing to facilitate.
I was gonna bring that up to you to because she has, I've talked to Naomi at length with this here position, and let her know what kind of a job and what the expectations there of facilitating such a meeting. And she has agreed to facilitate this meeting, so.
Thank you.
I think she's a welcomed addition. That's what the board would like to do, is she's ran meetings before. She's got a good background in running meetings with the extension, in that, like I said, I myself would strongly encourage the board to take her offer of helping us facilitate and walk us through the issues and as we go forward.
I think the study group really agreed with that, if she's willing to do it.
If you are, appreciate it.
I have one issue.
Well, come on up.
9 o'clock won't work for me, 10 o'clock will.
Yeah, we can do
Make that work.
Okay.
We're flexible.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another just consensus, correct?
Yes, that's consensus.
Okay,
And I suppose just maybe have Tess touch base with her too, that she's going to be doing stuff for the county, if there's anything she needs to be aware of, or, whatever, just to make sure that
Did you hear that, Tess? Do we need to clear anything with Naomi facilitating a meeting as far as
human resources?
She's a consultant, I would assume. Something like that.
Can you check
Just let me
into?
know what the details are, and I'll make sure it all works out.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda.
Is that where I have the question? I have a question on something.
Oh, yeah, Judy, I saw that. I got that down too for discussion on that upcoming agenda request, right?
Right.
Yeah, I got a question on it too, yeah. You know what that is?
Well, I saw this person at the AMC thing, and I just feel like then we're opening it up to every,
Okay,
What's it about?
it has to do with the discount program.
but
for-
wouldn't that go through Human Services first?
I can direct them there first.
That's what,
She emailed me and made it sound like she had talked to you guys at EMC and that you were
she
aware
had,
she was coming.
no,
and-
nothing like that.
Okay,
No.
then I will direct her to.
Go through Human Services.
I will do that.
Okay.
Teresa, you want to recognize a question or something from the floor?
Excuse me, yeah.
Since the study group is open meetings, will the dates and times be on the county website?
It's not really a meeting, it's just considered a study group. It is open because it's business, but it won't be posted as a meeting.
So how do we find out? An open meeting, you have to publicize it somehow,
Yeah,
or
but
it's
it's
not
not
open.
considered a meeting, it's open and the.
An open meeting has a quorum. This one will not
And
have
this
a quorum.
Right, but it's open to the public, so how do we find out when to go to this study group?
We are planning a meeting next Monday at 10 at this point. Rick? Can you answer that?
This meeting has no decision-making authority at all.
It doesn't matter.
It is only
Right, it's still
recommendations.
open meeting, or open.
It does not necessarily have to be open.
We're the stakeholders.
But it is open.
Our attorney actually said it does not need to be open if it's just a study group not making a decision and doesn't have a quorum. So we
What
don't
we
need
do
to.
come up with goes through a public hearings and scrutiny anyway. I mean,
Right.
they're making
So does that
decisions
mean we
on what to
can't
present to the
attend?
public.
No, we are not making decisions, we're just working
So-
on a study group, so
So
it's
does
not.
that mean we cannot come and observe?
Right, it's not an open meeting, it's a study group. And they, we don't have a quorum of commissioners there. It's just like any other group, any other thing, that decision that's made. Okay, let's go on.
So it is open or it isn't open? I
It's
can
not.
attend or I can't attend?
You can't.
Didn't Teresa, Commissioner, didn't you just say that people could attend, you just aren't posting?
We are not posting it as just a study group.
Right, but I as a concerned, or I as a citizen of Houston County can attend if I like.
Government business is open to the public, you can sit in the room.
Okay,
You just
thank
can't
you.
participate or.
And if I wanted to find out the time or place, I could contact you or Commissioner Zimieski
Right.
to find out when and where this is
Exactly.
occurring?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. That was my question.
That's not.
Moving on to the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Well, unfinished business, highway department building.
Meeting on Thursday.
Okay, nothing new. As you saw, we did contact our legislators last week, and I did have quite a conversation with Greg Davids that this is a nonpartisan issue. It's really concerning just the courthouse and our needs here. It's not supposed to go to a party decision. And then he did agree with that.
But it just made me feel like we weren't very well represented when I talked to him. I was very disappointed. I think that we need to be represented whether it's a Democratic or Republican issue and not pushed off to it being.
Got the idea you just gave up already.
Right, and I was really disappointed.
I let him know that too. But yeah, I don't think we were represented at that committee at all.
It almost made me feel like we needed to go out of our area and go for a Democratic representative because maybe they'd listen to us. It just was not a good conversation.
Okay, commissioner reports. Dana?
Yes, I have a number of things. Last Tuesday night, I attended the ordinance study group, rewriting it. And every time we have this, it comes up about, we have most everything knocked down pretty well except the term limits for the planning commission. We go over and over that every time. So I'm going to explain it. They want me to explain it to you guys so you'll understand when it comes to the rule.
Hang on 1 second. Before you start, I guess I would clarify, was that what the direction was for that committee? I thought we were, or maybe Sharp, you've got the minutes. I know it was directed they were going to clean up language. I don't know if it was that they were going to rewrite the term limits the board previously voted on.
But let's just hear what their questions are.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we could get that. I would like to know what that.
I think Dana's just bringing up a question that they had.
This is something that goes on every meeting.
Yeah.
The thing that's going to happen is that at the end of the year, there'll be 2 more going off, and then next year, 2 more will go off, and they're questioning if they won't have enough years of service to the board to be real green. So they'd like to, or I'm proposing that the last group of 2 to go off, which would be Glenn Cruz and I can't remember the other guy, that we move them back, give them a 4-year term again. So that would give the rest of the younger ones more time to work with these guys. That's what they'd like.
So the board would be like half new and 2 old. It'd be more new than old on there at that point too.
You're giving another year for some of them guys to get more experience.
I think you're talking about just a one-time deal?
Just a one-time. After that, it doesn't even come up again.
Oh, you mean after that it goes to what the original was voted?
369.
It's just the
It's just to get
transition.
it kind of eased into this.
The transition.
Because they're really concerned, and I think it's a good point, that they're going to lose everybody within the next 3 years.
So basically, you're looking for a consensus of the board.
Yeah, to say the last 2 guys can go for a 4-year term.
Right.
And then after that, I
And
think
then
it'll be okay.
one-time deal.
By then, it'll be fine. It should work itself out, the idea we proposed.
That was
So,
good.
do you think that's okay?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll bring that back to you, and then we can get over this.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. And then I was, last Thursday, I had the water planning meeting in the morning, and night I went to the extension committee with Teresa there. They're all doing good work. That's
I had union negotiations yesterday with Tess. Things seem to be going smoothly. Some things that yet need to be more or less clarified, which there's great arguments on both sides, but now it's kind of legalese as far as clarification. other than that, oh, there you go. Other than that, things keep going smoothly, so we'll continue on.
And I was out of town for a couple of days, so I really don't have anything.
I went to a CJC meeting last Thursday, and we just got into a lot of talk about security in this building and the other building. And then yesterday I was at the emergency communications board. Like all these
It used to be Armor.
Right. And that's a learning situation for me. It's just my second meeting, but I'm learning a lot. And they deal with all the interaction between the different units of government and the radio reception stuff, and who can go on it. And so it's real interesting. And then last night I had a Hiawatha Valley Mental Health meeting, and that went good. We're forging ahead on housing for people with mental health issues, and we're hoping we're gonna someday break ground before too long, because it's very needed. The one that's identical to this, that's in Owatonna, has a waiting list of, it used to be 40 people and now it's 80 people for that. And so the need is really there for more housing.
I had the extension meeting last week along with Dana, and it is a very good committee. We have a very good 4-H director. He's very active all throughout the whole county, trying to include them, and they are going to be part of the open house with public health and veteran services, and have a booth there too. Also, they worked on discussion on farm family recognition, which we can't bring up until we find out if they accepted it. But it was a very good meeting, and they have a good group there. That's the only other meeting I had at this time.
Real quick, I got one more thing, but Char, did you happen to get a phone call from a gentleman talking about a youth farm? No. Okay, I'll bring this up real quick. It was a gentleman called me and was talking about him and a group of people do a deal for like troubled youth, and they work with a company right now, and had asked about how to get involved with Houston County and possibly open up. Their idea was to try and get some sort of a activity or like youth farm where you could have, like raised vegetables, things like that for some of the troubled youth in that area. And I had directed them to talk to you about, they wanted to talk to the county and see how to go about it, if there was any businesses that would be interested, or county entities or something like that. I had said that Human Services would talk to them about stuff, and then possibly talk to you as far as some businesses. And he had mentioned about if it would be possible to present to the board some options of what they wanted to do in Houston County, to see if this would be something that anybody would be willing to help them out with. So I directed them to you, so just so you know.
Are they looking at funding from the county?
No, it didn't sound like it. What he said to me, what the gist of what I got from the conversation was, they didn't want to try and go after any government funding. In the past, what they found is they had that before, but then they put so many rules and restrictions because you're getting government funding that you have to do these certain things, and it was becoming non-productive for them. So they wanted to try and do it on their own and get either donations or whatever to start it, and that their goal was to be self-sufficient, to raise enough crops to kind of cover their bills and their expenses.
Are you aware of Touching Moments?
No.
Okay.
And I don't know if that has any affiliation, maybe that's...
No, it doesn't. This is a nonprofit around by Hoka that's working with people with disabilities. But, that, to me, that would be a better option. We already have something started in
Maybe
our
put them in
county.
contact with the person.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. I just said I'd bring it up because I said I don't know exactly where to direct you or what to do that.
Yeah, I would hate to see people being asked for two similar things, because this group has worked really hard to get established. They've gotten grants, they've gotten private donations. They're really
Oh, maybe they could merge
They
together or
put
something.
years
Yeah.
of
Or
work
work
into
together,
this.
maybe give them a name,
Yeah, and I just
get
said I
the
have
two
no
names
idea.
together, at least
Yeah.
to talk to each other.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I just said I'd bring it up so that somebody might know where to direct it. So anyways, if you get a phone call, that might be a problem.
Okay.
so.
Approval of the claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims, human services, and license center disbursements.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No other business to come before the board?
About finance update.
Oh, finance.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it is,
Yeah,
it
the
doesn't
last-
have time.
Well, you know, I emailed you the report, right?
Oh,
And at this point of the year, we have the departments that have made their annual purchases and, you know, like Bev spends her money at the beginning of the year and my computer just kind of quit here, so. So it's really pretty much typical as to March of the year. I did look up last year and actually our expenditures over revenues last year at the end of March was $2.766 million, and this year we're at $2.002 million, so we've actually spent less than typically we have at the end of March for the year. Donna will be putting together the investment summary. It's been kind of hectic trying to get the tax statements out, so she's going to put that together and we'll get that presented to you, but I said, at this point of the year, you can go down the list and pretty much see which departments they pay for their projects at the beginning of the year. We also have January, February, and March, we have 7 pay periods. So all of our salary budgets look like they're over. And so that'll even out at the end of June because we'll have the half, the 13, because there'll be 6 pay periods. And you know, if there's anything really out of line that you think you'd like an explanation on.
Did you see anything that was
I did not. You know, I went through all the line items and it's the same ones.
It's
that
just
we-
early in the year and
Mhm. Look at Andy's. He's at 37% of his budget. And
he's back there
that's
blushing
because-
right now.
I know. I knew he was there, so that's why I would say his, but
He's so ashamed.
he makes all the hardware purchases at the beginning of the year and pays for our Microsoft licensing and just kind of the way it goes. And-
See, the lodging, has pretty much blown the lodging budget.
Well, and yours was last year too,
98%.
and it ended up being okay. Because your December lodging gets put on the credit card, it gets paid in January, and the same thing is true at the end of the year. So it does
We start out high and we even out.
even out. And the per diems, it says it's at 35%, and that's because your December per diems get paid in January. So it's kind of the nature of the finances, because we don't do accrual accounting. We don't have staff to do accrual accounting every month, so. And aside from that, we're working with the auditors on getting the audit information to them for the 2013 audit. And it seems like it's looking along the way it should be. And, yes, our cash balance actually for all funds at the end of January is $500,000 more than it was at the end of March. At the end of March, it's $500,000 more than it was March of last year. So, you know, it's kind of keeping in pace. No one may yell at anybody.
Any questions as you look through the report that stood out?
No.
There's a lot of pages, I'm glad they're not
126.
paper copies in here.
And that's only at the end of the quarter that I send you the line by line. At the end of each other month, I just send you the
I
summary
really
one.
like getting it.
Can you tell if we save money on paper going to electronic?
Oh, I'm sure we.
Noticeable. Is
Is
it
it noticeable?
Well, this would have been about
Okay.
15 pages.
Yeah, this one would have been.
Oh, 50, no, it would have been 120 some pages.
126 is showing.
Yeah, 126 pages. Well, you know, we do front and back, so 63. So. It will be interesting to look at our paper machinery.
What you
supplies.
purchase in paper would be.
Well, that and copier, you know, toner, what goes with it.
Sure, where are we at year-end wise? Are we looking all right, or where are we at for?
You mean for projecting to the end of 2014?
Yep.
You know, if we stay in line, our projected budget deficit was $31,000, and I can't see that we'll be any different than that. I can't see that we'll be way over. But we will also start budgeting already for 2015. We like to wait till the end of June so they can have a 50-50 to look at when they're doing their departmental projections. We might get the reports out to them a little bit earlier so they can start messing around with looking at different things that might be able to be done.
Sounds good, good report.
Yeah, it's only March.
Thank you.
We'll know more in June.
All right, thank you. Sorry I missed you on the agenda.
Oh, that's
It's
okay.
because you didn't have a time by your name, that's how I go.
We're just kind of flexible.
Good.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.